In the mid-8th century BCE, the Levant is split into two distinct political entities, the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. In the north, cities like Samaria and Bethel are experiencing massive economic expansion. The elites live in mansions decorated with imported ivory, enjoying an era of intense outward religious activity and immense prosperity. Beneath that veneer of wealth lies a deeply corrupt society. The economic boom is fueled entirely by the systemic exploitation of the poor. Enter Amos. He is not a polished northern politician or a temple priest. He is a rugged shepherd who works the harsh, dry terrain of Tekoa, a small town located across the border in the southern kingdom. This southern outsider travels north to deliver an explicit message of total national destruction directly to those arrogant, wealthy elites. Doing so requires a strategy that keeps him from being immediately ignored or executed. Amos begins his public address without mentioning Israel at all. Instead, he constructs a masterclass in rhetorical entrapment. He outlines a universally accepted baseline of international morality by pointing to the neighboring pagan nations and publicly indicting them for extreme war crimes. He is setting up a logical equation. By securing the crowd's outrage at the barbaric atrocities of their enemies, he prepares to equate those external acts of war with the internal injustices practiced by his own audience. Amos forcefully asserts that severe human rights violations are not exclusively defined by the blood spilled on foreign battlefields. Systemic economic violence against the vulnerable carries the exact same moral weight. He deploys a specific ancient Near Eastern literary idiom, "For 3 transgressions, yes for 4. This sequence denotes absolute saturation. The crimes have compounded, and the bubble of divine patience is ready to burst. As we see on this map, Amos first targets Damascus in the northeast. He indicts them for a war crime against the people of Gilead, ripping open the bodies of captives using iron-studded agricultural threshing sledges. The focus moves down the Mediterranean coast. He condemns the Philistine commercial hubs of Gaza and Tyre for operating a wholesale human trafficking network, selling entire populations into slavery to Edom. Sweeping east of the Jordan Valley, Amos points to Ammon. Their crime is extreme wartime cruelty, ripping open pregnant women solely to expand their territorial borders. Directly south, Moab is indicted for burning the bones of the king of Edom to lime. The geographical encirclement of Israel and Judah is complete. This visual of ancient burial catacombs illustrates a core cultural value of the time, deep reverence for physical preservation. In the ancient Near East, destroying a body through cremation was a profound sacrilege and a desecration of the human form. By this point in the speech, the northern elites are cheering. They agree entirely with this strict standard of universal human rights and the impending divine justice on their enemies. The trap is set. Now Amos springs the trap. He quickly indicts his own southern kingdom of Judah, and then the boundary lines collapse inward. The bullseye is painted directly on the northern kingdom of Israel. This split-screen matrix compares the two sets of indictments. On the left, the bloody, outward weapons of pagan nations, iron sledges, chains, and fire. On the right, the civilized, bureaucratic tools of Israel's corruption, scales, silver coins, and legal contracts. Amos reads the data on the right. Israel's elites are selling righteous people into slavery for silver. They are trading the needy for a mere pair of sandals. In their courts, justice goes entirely to the highest bidder. They violate Torah law by taking a poor man's only cloak as a pledge for debt, refusing to return it at sunset, and instead using it as a blanket to sleep beside their religious altars. Amos obliterates the distinction between pagan barbarism and civilized business. Trampling the heads of the poor is equated directly with ripping open captives. Both are capital crimes against humanity. The elites of Israel believed their chosen status provided absolute immunity. Amos introduces the covenantal paradox. God uses their history of received grace as the exact rationale for a harsher judgment. He lists the historical miracles they are ignoring: delivered them from slavery in Egypt, sustained them through the wilderness, and conquered the towering Amorites. God also embedded specific spiritual gifts directly into their society: the prophets to speak truth, and the Nazarites to model dedication. The Nazirite vow required strict consecration, including abstaining from wine. The corrupt elites actively forced the Nazirites to drink wine, breaking their vows, and legally commanded the prophets to stay silent. In the architecture of divine justice, election and privilege do not grant a free pass. They demand absolute social accountability. Amos shifts to a section structured around the command Shema, meaning hear this word. He fires off a series of rhetorical questions based on cause and effect. Does a lion roar in a thicket when he has no prey? He provides the answer for his own unlikely presence in Samaria. Every effect has a cause. He is prophesying because God has spoken. God's voice is the cause. Amos is the effect. He levels a devastating critique at the opulent, upper-class women of the capital, addressing them with a biting agricultural metaphor, the cows of Bashan. Looking at this wide view of the Golan region, we see the physical reality behind the metaphor. The volcanic soil of the Bashan territory produced lush pastures, famous for raising prized, fat, sleek cattle. The elites are condemned for a lifestyle of absolute self-absorption. They demand a constant flow of luxury, entirely oblivious to the fragile poor they crush underfoot to maintain their ease. Amos turns his sights on their false religious security, specifically targeting the prominent altars at Bethel. This limestone artifact shows the physical horns of the altar, the rock-like projections at the corners. Legally, grasping these horns functioned as a claim for ultimate sanctuary and immunity from prosecution. Amos predicts these horns will be hacked off. There will be no sanctuary, no legal immunity, and no escape from the encroaching empire. This prophetic poetry maps directly to the historical reality of 721 BCE. The Assyrian Empire invades the northern kingdom, overthrows Samaria, and initiates mass deportations. Amos uses a horrifying metaphor, predicting the elites will be dragged away with fishhooks through their jowls. This wide shot of the British Museum Gallery holds Assyrian palace reliefs, providing historical proof that captors actually used this exact method on their prisoners. Outward religious ritual, when paired with the systemic exploitation of the vulnerable, does not yield divine favor. It results in total, violent, historical erasure.